Welcome to another Animation Friday. I apologize this video had to unfortunately be delayed. I did want to get everything uploaded by Sunday, but unfortunately, due to a lack of time, I was unable to do it until today, but I should be caught up by the end of Monday. So without further ado, let me address what I wanted to talk about for this particular Animation Friday that has to do with animated shorts about spring. Yes, there have been some shorts that have come around over the years that have been sort of spring related and that are cartoons, so I thought I would dive into some of them. First off, right out of the gate, The Goddess of Spring. Now this one's very interesting because this is really the first Disney short, at least that I've seen, that's really taken on a sort of, I guess you could really call it a Greek myth. And sort of turning it around to make it seem somewhat oriented with the, I guess what we would call the Christian devil, because they do make Hades pretty much look like the devil and Satan as opposed to really Hades. But basically, this short follows none other than the goddess of spring, which technically in Greek mythology she is called Persephone, and she sort of rules spring, and she has all of the pretty critters and cute birdies and all the pretty flowers and whatnot, and she's just having a grandiose, peaceful time until Hades comes along. In other words, the sort of uh, figure of the underworld. That, again, it doesn't really look like the Hades that we often probably would think of as far as Greek mythology, because it looks a little bit more like the Satan of the, again, Christian faith. But regardless, this Hades, king of the underworld, decides to take Persephone to his underworld, and he sort of has her imprisoned as sort of his queen against her will, and eventually you will see how this sort of tale really reflects onto the whole concept of spring. And the whole mythos surrounding it was that Persephone would be released when it's springtime, and would have to return to the underworld once spring is over. And that was sort of the deal that was at least crafted within this short to show sort of where that whole myth kind of began. And it's interesting because you sort of see how when she's away, how spring sort of really turns into winter, and how all of the critters are kind of suffering, and there's a state of sort of misery. And it really does show you sort of the cycle of what we consider to be seasons. And I think this reflects onto spring fairly well, and it does it in a very interesting way by showcasing the mythos, and in doing so presenting a overall good impression of what we come to interpret as this kind of interesting legend, where spring and the underworld are sort of seen as forces of nature. And what's great about this short is it has beautiful animation, and on top of that, we get to see the lovely singing as well, because there's actually singing pretty much throughout the entire short, and sort of Persephone sings out her lines, the goddess of spring, and Hades, aka the sort of Satan figure, sings out his as well. So you really do get the sense of it being very old-fashioned, but also very timeless in that sense. So it really works as a short and is really enjoyable, and actually has a lot of insight that oftentimes you don't see in a lot of animated shorts. Next one is called Springtime. and this is also by Disney. And this is sort of a little bit more simplistic in its approach, especially considering the fact that it was, I believe, made in 1929. So you've got like the flowers and the critters kind of all dancing around, and they're kind of dancing to this kind of rhythm. And you probably will notice too that actually this short was featured in one of Disney's films, the film being 101 Dalmatians. Uh, and I find that to be rather interesting, that they decided to sort of insert that particular short there. But you could really tell that Disney was in these sort of earlier stages where they were just kind of experimenting as far as what they could do with movement. And oftentimes that movement may seem like it's repetitive, but in a way it showcases to you how far animation has come over the years, and also how uh, even the simplistic aspects can be rather enjoyable, and they seem to go well, I think, with this particular short. Um, and again, it has that creativity that, again, Disney is known for. And on top of that, you really do feel the sense of charm, and it's super happy throughout. It's rather simplistic, but at the same time, it's fun and entertaining. So you do get a real interesting vibe from this particular short, unlike the previous short where there's this sense of sadness, but also this overwhelming sense of joy and peacefulness, as well as happiness. So that's one short that I think is definitely worth recommending and reflects onto the sort of emotions that we often associate with when it comes to spring, as well as the animals and the flowers and whatnot. Second to last short that I wanted to briefly mention is Birds of Spring. This one is rather pleasant in that, you hear the birds chirping, it feels very authentic and genuine in that it does sound like birds. Um, and you sort of see the birds sort of enjoying themselves and having a good time, because it is springtime, and uh, you end up following one particular bird that sort of kind of escapes the nest, and you'll sort of see how that ends up occurring. But it is rather interesting to see Disney sort of take on this uh, approach of showcasing more so one animal as opposed to multiple animals that are sort of present within the previous shorts that I've been mentioning. And I think oftentimes birds get associated as the sort of animal or one of the main animals of spring only because um, it's really a time for them to really thrive, and sort of be, I think, more active maybe than usual. So you sort of see it makes sense from a seasonal perspective, and um, again, it's cute, it's fun, and it engages you in a way that, again, is somewhat not there with maybe some other shorts. Last one that I wanted to briefly mention is actually somewhat Easter related in that it follows bunnies, and in this case, funny little bunnies. And this short is pretty adorable in how creative and how cute it approaches these bunnies, because you sort of see all the aspects that are sort of related to what we come to really think of when we think of Easter and spring in general. Because basically you see the bunnies sort of making chocolate eggs, you see the whole kind of process behind it. You see chickens laying eggs and how the bunnies sort of boil the eggs and then color the eggs. And again, it gets you into that mood of enjoying not only the holiday of Easter, but also the whole spirit of spring, which is very colorful, is really bright and very energetic. Um, and it really suits the short tit's advantage. Um, But I think that's really all I can say about all of these shorts. They're really interesting and offer some really cool perspective onto the whole concept of spring. I'll be sure to put links below to all of the shorts so that you may enjoy them. But that's, I think, ultimately all I can say. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.